Welcome to our session, our third session on the general issue of genocide. And I am well aware that this is sort of a very, very unpleasant subject matter. It's really ridiculous, actually, that we even have to discuss this sort of an issue in a modern civilization. But we have come to that point. And we discussed in the previous two presentations how some of this has developed. And you're free to disagree, and many people do disagree. Some people don't think there's anything planned about the genocides that occur, for the most part, with very few exceptions. Some people feel that it's just simply a matter of unstable minds who somehow manage to gain the reins of power periodically in history, and that's really about all there is to it, or that certain things happen as a result of unpleasant racial or ethnic relations on occasion, but that there's essentially no real plan. And I respect that belief. We talked about that belief, which is pretty much the accidental school of history. And we here believe that it's not accidental in many cases. Accidents do occur. We're not saying they do not. Not everything in history is conspiratorial. Many, many events were not planned. And happenstance does occur very, very frequently. But other things were planned and are planned. And in many cases, the general public is not aware of this sort of development. Now, we said that we were going to get more into the background of it. And we're going to talk today about the modern era. And by that, I mean, from an historical perspective, the modern era really started about 1500 AD with the age of discovery, the discovery of the New World, advances in ship-making, shipbuilding, navigation, military power, the advance of new and growing empires such as Spain and Portugal, England, France, the Holy Roman Empire. All of these empires began to vie for power and control of many parts of the world through the expansion of mercantilism and colonialism. And of course, this imperial position created a great deal of tension between these powers, and this produced war. And the series of wars served as a natural check on population growth, along with famines, drought, and all the other natural calamities that occur. So there was a natural inclination on the part of many to view that this is just one of the unfortunate happenstances in life, that these things happen and people die, but there's nothing conspiratorial about it. There is a view that goes along to a large extent with biblical thought and common teaching, particularly with Protestant eschatologists, that it is much deeper than that, as we stated earlier, that there is a plan. It's satanic in origin. It's being carried out today by a number of elites, and it's extremely clever, very long-term, insidious, well-organized, extraordinarily well-financed, and that it has captured the hearts and souls of many, many, many people. Now, in the past, some of this planning was carried out by certain royals. Some of it was carried out by high church officials. Some of it was carried out by the lesser nobility. And some of it was planned and some of it was not. But it existed, and it still exists, and it's growing. And the human population on this planet would be probably 10, 15 times greater than it is. As many people as there are in the world, it would be far, far more, or greater rather, were it not for all the wars and calamities that we have suffered. Many of these wars were planned, and there's strong evidence to indicate that. And we'll get into some of that in later series. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about in the present day, in very recent history, is the depopulation plan as put forth by various elites, proponents of the United Nations system. And some people feel that the document known as Agenda 21, which was put out at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 and then published in 1993. That book's available on the internet. Anybody can get it. Free PDF copy. You shouldn't have any problems getting it at all. and that book is really, to a large extent, code talk. It's not just about sustainable development, but in the view of many people, it's actually a blueprint for depopulation as a method of achieving sustainability. Now, I've read a great deal of Agenda 21. It's an exhaustive book with an avalanche of statistics and facts and theories and so forth. Chapter 5 deals with population. And I didn't see anything there that specifies depopulation. So therefore, some people say, well, it's coded. And you have to understand how it's written and why it's written the way it's written. But whether it's there or not, the fact that the elites are talking at a global level about issues like population control and population policy is alarming, because many of these elites are not elected officials. We didn't elect them. Americans didn't elect them. Europeans didn't elect them. They're there by virtue of their economic standing, their financial power, ministers that they know in government. And many of the ministers in government that serve on these various committees that draft up plans like Agenda 21 are not put into office specifically for that purpose, but yet they're there doing it anyway. And many of the other people who are involved in it, as we stated, were not elected to do anything at all. They just assumed that power for themselves. One such organization that has done that is known as the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group was formed about 1954 through Prince Bernhard and some of his compatriots in the Netherlands. And they meet every year and have done so since 1954. And there's about 120 principal members, and the membership list changes from year to year. And typically it consists of presidents, prime ministers, very, very senior government officials, cabinet ministers, captains of industry, banking officers, very strong banking representation in that group. And they denied their existence really through the mass media for many, many years. Members of the media, like CBS, NBC, MSNBC, so forth, almost never talk, even now, about this particular group. But they have come out and finally admitted that they do exist. And they do exist in various guises and various groups, working groups, they call them, to bring about policy change. And some of that policy change, a great deal of it, in fact, deals with the issue of sustainable development. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We do need to address that issue. It needs to be looked at very seriously because it is a serious issue. This is a small planet, relatively speaking. If you look across the universe, particularly in our galaxy, there's many, many planets, much, much larger and more massive than ours. We're a relatively small terrestrial planet with limited resources. 71% of our surface area is covered by salt water. Another 20% of the total surface of the Earth is locked up in ice caps. Another 10% or so is tied up in deserts and so forth. And so when you get right down to the part of the Earth that's really capable of sustaining biomass to the level that it supports human beings, is a relatively small percentage on a relatively small planet. So we do have to husband our resources, and that is a challenge. So it's not that it's not a worthy subject. It's the way that it's being done, in secret, behind closed doors, without public debate, policies being changed, implemented, and forced from an international level down to national levels, the usurpation of sovereign power of the individual nations, the lack of public involvement, the lack of public knowledge. And how far do these policies go? Some people strongly believe that these policies go all the way up and include the extinction of hundreds of millions, if not billions of people from the face of this earth. Cannot prove it in a court of law. It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean it's not a possibility. I'm not naming names here. I'm not accusing anyone here. So I want to be very clear about that. We want to be responsible, and it is entirely possible that some of this is just a bad misunderstanding. It's also entirely possible that there's a lot to it, and that's why we're concerned. We're going to look more at Agenda 21 and other policy documents set forth generally through the United Nations as we go forward in this series. So thank you for tuning in. Feel free to comment and let other folks know about this discussion. Thank you.